What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tsunami Speaks with your host, Tsunami Jones. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, run, tell a friend if you can. That's how we'll grow this channel going forward and try and win this little contest that I have with my guy, I am Jarrell at Die Hard Giants Live. Go subscribe to him as well. But help your girl out first. I really appreciate you guys as always. That said, let's start off with week 4. Jets versus Steelers and go with that injury reports. So, actually, some good news and bad news when it comes to the Jets this week. The bad news, Quincy Williams is out with a high ankle sprain. This is not a surprise. If you watched the game last week, you saw Quincy go out in the second half of the game and it looked kind of gruesome for a bit. The good news is that he is just week to week. And so that's something that we could be at least somewhat pleased about. Not that he's hurt, but that it shouldn't be too long. Maybe next week he might play against the Dolphins, in which we'll need him because they're a very run heavy team and he's been pretty solid against the run this year. That said, as we should all know, but I'll go ahead and update you guys that may not be aware, George Fant went on IR earlier this week. That part was kind of upsetting, but having seen him in the game, he didn't look good at all. He looks slow. He looks sluggish. And if you've been looking at the injury reports every week, we've been seeing that he's been hurting with this knee. He's been taken off every Wednesday because of it and limited in practice because of it. I mean, that does mean something. So, I know you were saying George Fent looked terrible this year. I mean, injuries do play a big role. And I'm hopeful when he does come off IR in the next 4 weeks that we'll be getting back a healthy guy. Don't know if he needs surgery. I mean, from what we've heard, he doesn't need that. So that's the good news. But anyway, we'll be out with him. Connor McDermott will be subbing in. Not excited about that at all. Connor McDermott, every time I see him on the field, he gets beat like a drum. So that is one big concern going in. But the good news is we'll be getting Dwayne Brown back off the list, the IR list or whatever, DL, next week. Whether he plays and starts right away, we'll see. That's going to be up to Saleh and John Benton and LaFleur and all that good stuff. So we'll see. Now, as for the Steelers, they are playing Larry Ogunjobi and Cameron Sutton. Both those two where I know they had some injury issues before. Cameron Sutton now is listed with having a groin, but they said he should be active for the game. They didn't say anything about questionable or probable or anything like that. But I think that's something to look into, considering he just showed up having a groin injury. And he was limited in practice on Friday, and he was out Wednesday and Thursday. Minkah Fitzpatrick. Everyone knows who that guy is. He had a concussion before. Looks like he's trending to play. They don't have him listed as out or questionable or anything. And he practiced in full on Friday. So that's the bad news for us. I was hopeful he would just, take this week off and come back next week. But these players, they're gamers. All of them are. And they always want to get out there, no matter how they feel. TJ Watt's out. Pretty obvious, but still going to bring it up. Akello Witherspoon is their starting left corner. He's going to be playing. I'm sorry, not playing. He's going to be out. He's going to be out as well with this hamstring issue. Advantage Jets there. We have a really good wide receiving core. So having him out does help us. And with Sutton dealing with a groin injury, albeit he said to play, something to kind of pay attention to. So moving on to our keys to the win this week, because of course I'm going to give you the win because that's what I expect. First key, always going to be a key on my list. That's got to be, is for us to limit turnovers. Just because the team that is clean generally wins, and we haven't been winning the turnover battle recently at all. Even in our win versus the Browns, we didn't win the turnover battle. So that needs to be resolved. We need to have a clean game. Last week, we had 4 turnovers. That's completely unacceptable. It can't happen again, especially against these Steelers. They're not a fantastic defense without TJ Watt, so there's that. However, they do have some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And if we're not clean, they can score points. They're not a high scoring team. So we don't want their defense scoring on us. That would hurt. So, and with Flacco's, well, not just Flacco, but with that game last week, he had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So you could almost say all 4 turnovers were on him. But it's still a team game. There was a lot of things kind of going on at the time. But hoping for a clean slate with Zach coming in. Moving on to our next key, and I'm going to use this again, even though I used it last week, is to win the time of possession. Last week, we were held to 27 minutes, and the Bengals had 32 minutes and some change. The best way for us to maintain that time of possession is run the ball. So I'm kind of putting 2 keys together here. We definitely need to run the ball. Last week, we ran the ball 19 times against the Bengals, excluding a draw play. I'm not going to count that as a run. We need us to run at least 25 times. I want us to play complementary football, but not just that. We need to run the ball more in general because this is the Shanahan offense. That's what we're supposed to do. And with Zach coming back and coming off of an injury, we need to protect Zach by running the ball anyway. And on top of that, we've actually been very productive when running the ball. Breece Hall has been really good with it. Carter's been good. Breece has been averaging 5.3 yards per carry. We need to feed that man the ball. And hopefully in a situation like this where we're going against a team that's not a high-powered offense, should give us an opportunity in order to do so. And to be honest, even with that 5.3 yards per carry that Breece has, he hasn't even really broke a long one yet. I think he had one for 20 yards, but we know this guy is a game wrecker when he gets the ball. He can go for 30, 40, 50. We saw it in the offseason. We've seen him in college. College may not matter, but I think we're going to see it in this season. Wouldn't surprise me if it happens on Sunday. With that said, the next one for me is continue to stop the run. Their best player on offense, in my opinion, and probably others should agree here, is Najee Harris. George Pickens might get there, but he's not there yet, especially with the way that they're running their offense currently. We need to hold Najee Harris under 50 yards rushing, and I would like us to hold him under 15 yards receiving the ball out of the backfield. He has good hands, and he can do some things with the ball when he has it off of screens and things of that nature. So he's someone to be concerned about. He came into the season with a sprained Lisfranc injury. Never heard of that happening before. I thought if you hurt your Lisfranc, that was out. You were done for the season. But apparently, Najee is some sort of Iron Man character. He only had 23 rushing yards against the Bengals week 1. I think it's because of that injury. The last 2 games, he's been increasing his rushing yards, 49 and 56 yards respectfully. That's not game wrecking or it's not earth shattering at all, but I'm thinking that he's starting to pick up some steam here as he gets healthier. So I don't want him going anywhere north of 60 or to 80 yards, which it wouldn't surprise me if he went for that. But I want us to control him, so to speak. We need to stop the run. One of the things Jordan Whitehead does really well, even though his cover skills aren't there, he's a great in the box safety. I think he makes some good tackles against Najee Harris, and I'm excited to see that. But that said, I think we'll be able to contain him, and we've been doing pretty well against the run all season. Sans the Browns game. Nick Chubb just killed us, just like he kills everybody else. I mean, the Steelers knew that Chubb was going to go off when they played them last week on Thursday Night Football, and it didn't matter. He killed them. So that said, and they see him all the time, and they weren't even able to stop him. I'm not making excuses, just something I'm observing here, and I think everyone else knows that. Chubb gashes everybody. That's just what he does. That said, next key would be for the defense needs to get to the quarterback. May seem simple, but for our team, it's not simple. The Steelers don't have a great offensive line. Anyone that's kind of watched them in camp, we kept hearing it that their offensive line was terrible. In the preseason, it looked awful. However, if you've been watching them, they've been doing a little bit better job of protecting him. I was kind of impressed when I was watching them last week on Thursday Night Football against the Browns. He's only been sacked 2 times. I believe, this season. Um, so that's definitely something to consider. I think part of the reason that he's only been sacked that little amount of time is because he's athletic. I think people kind of forget that Trubisky is probably a better runner than he is a passer. If you watch the Bears and what they did with him, they were a lot better when they were running the football with him than they were with him staying in the pocket. So bootlegs, all that kind of stuff. Um, I would say like a worse. My comp for Trubisky would be like a not less athletic, but a less accurate version of Mark Sanchez. I don't know if people would like that comp. That's my comp. Anyway, that said, that's going to be a little problematic for us because it seems like we really struggle when it comes to athletic quarterbacks. I need us to make a change there. We need to break the mold there and do better because even though he's athletic, he's not Justin Fields. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's just able to use his legs to get out of trouble. We need our defensive line to step up like we thought they were going to step up against the Bengals. So this is their opportunity. Again, the Steelers still don't have a great offensive line. They can be had, and I expect us to do better. I would like to see us get at least 3 to 4 sacks or at least a ton of damn hurries. But I would like to see 3 to 4 sacks because those sacks make a difference when you get them. Because I mean, especially if it's like on a 3rd and long situation, that could stop a kick from happening. That obviously stops a drive from happening. But you can take them out of field goal range. You can force them in a really bad field goal position, and then what ends up happening for you is just better field position, excuse me, for your team. And maybe we'll be in the red zone when we start. I don't know. I need to see some sacks. So that's definitely one of my keys here. And I think everyone will agree with me that has watched the Jets this year. This is a new key that shouldn't have to be on here, but I'm going to put it here anyway. Stop the crazy miscommunications at the goal line. Stop it. What the hell has been going on with them? Like we've seen it in back-to-back weeks where we've given an extremely easy touchdown due to a miscommunication at the goal line. The Chase touchdown last week. Oh, the Amari Cooper touchdown the week before. What was that? Now it looks like some of it is due to just lack of being on the same page with Sauce. Sauce is young, and may not have all his P's and Q's and all that stuff necessarily taken care of when it comes to understanding what they should be doing. I think he knows what he should be doing on the play. But so they need to get that resolved. And I'm sure, and it shouldn't happen again, but this still needs to be said. We heard Ulbrich and Saleh mention they may scale the defensive scheme down a little bit and simplify it. Maybe. DJ Reed said last week they have to have another meeting. I know CJ came out and said, we have meetings every week. We should discuss it there. It doesn't matter where it happens. I don't care if the coaches are there. It could be players only. All that matters is they need to get on the same damn page because this defense is way too talented. Way too talented, especially that secondary is too talented for this to be happening. I know our safeties are meh, but when it's a miscommunication issue and not just blown tackles, except for the Taj Boyd missed tackle last week, you can see it. There's an issue there, and we need to get that figured out. And I don't care who does it. Ulbrich, I'm looking at you though. I was kind of defending you the week before. Getting harder to defend you, especially after some of the discussion that we've heard from these press conferences. One thing that this wasn't listed as a key, but I'll kind of riff off of this for a bit. We aren't giving Quinnen Williams, 80% of the snaps, and I think we should. Quinnen is young. Quinnen is in the best shape of his life coming into the season. You can see it on him, and he's probably one of our best defensive players. Definitely on the line, he's the best defensive player on the line, and he's actually been getting a ton of pressures and making plays happen when he's in there. But he's been doing about 60% of the snaps. We can do better than that. And for Ulbrich to be so concerned about resting players, and I get that for the older players, that makes sense there. But Quinnen is young and he's in a contract year. I know he wants the ball out. Let's help the young man and help ourselves. Let's have our best players on the team on the field as much as possible within reason. Move it to 75%. What is that? What's the equivalent of that? I mean, an extra 5 plays. I want them in there on third down for sure. I know that. But I'll leave it to Ulbrich. My whole point is we're watching you, bro. We're watching you. I mean, you are coaching for your job at this point. Don't let don't let Salah fool you there. Because if we have a terrible defense this year, even if we win enough games and our offense is just doing it, I mean, I would say Ulbrich's in trouble. This is the first time he's been a defensive coordinator, just like it was the first time it was LaFleur's. So, some players aren't meant to necessarily be in these positions. I don't want to turn my back on a defensive coordinator just like that. I think there's more to it than it's just him and it's just scheme, but I think our guys need to be more willing to be versatile, more willing to change. He mentioned something about like it takes up to 8 weeks to really know what you have as a defense and all that. I'm gonna let that go because that was a weird damn comment. And he was saying Bill Belichick doesn't know yet. Okay. Bill will change the focus of his defense every single week. I've seen him do it for years. Not just me. Any Jets fan has seen him do it for weeks and years and all that. So that said, kind of weak sauce. As a comparison, don't mention Bill Belichick. uh, we'll see what ends up happening though. I'm not out on dude yet, but dude's on my hot list at this point, and not in a good way here. That said, last key, offensive line needs to hold up for Zach. I know I've said that for Flacco. It still matters here since this is Zach's first game of the season coming off of an injury. I do know Zach is way more athletic than Flacco. It's not even close. Zach's probably a 9 in terms of athleticism, where Flacco's a 1. That said, I don't want Zach having to run every single snap. Let's not have him under those circumstances yet, or ever, honestly. We want an offensive line to protect the kid. And I think it's human nature to be a little bit reticent to do a juke move after a juke move is what ended up hurting your season, picking you out of the preseason and giving you that injury. So I don't know. I don't know how much Zach truly is going to want to run on game day. So, that's just something I'm thinking about. And Connor McDermott's going to be playing, the starting left tackle. I mentioned it earlier. I'll go into more depth here. He's the only left tackle that we had coming into this week. And then once we got the the George Fant news, we went and signed Mike Remmers and the dude off the Texans practice squad. I don't have his name. I apologize, guys. That said, Remmers definitely has some experience. He played for the Bengals and all that good stuff, and he's pretty solid. I mean, I don't love either guy, but I like either of those guys over Connor McDermott. I've seen enough. So that said, we need to help Connor as much as possible here, especially going against a team that has a really good pass rusher. People may not know he's not like a name brand pass rusher unless you're like a football head, so to speak. If you watch a lot of football and you know this stuff and you pay attention to stats, you might not know unless you're a Steelers fan. And that's Aaron Highsmith or Alex Highsmith. He's really good. I don't want Connor to have any one-on-ones with Highsmith. I need him to be helped at all times. I need Uzama. Unfortunately, I've been using him as an inline blocker so much, and that kind of sucks for him. I would like him to get some pass catching opportunities because I like him as a pass catcher. He's a big body that can, make some plays, and he doesn't just go down with the first tackle. That's a big deal, from a tight end perspective. But we're going to need his help. He's going to be an extra offensive lineman in this game. Please help Connor McDermott. I would like Zach to have maybe 1 or 2 sacks at the most at the end of this game. That's it. I don't want any more sacks on him. Anyway, so hopefully we chip on Highsmith as well and all the good stuff and use Uzama and then maybe even Conklin the block. So big key, keep him clean. Keep Zach clean. All right, and moving on to players to watch. one of my favorite sections to go over when it comes to these game previews with you guys. Starting off with the Jets, of course. Zach Wilson. I have to start with my guy. Have to. He's back. He's 100%. What we need from him is a post MCL sprain game from Zach. In other words, when he was hurt last year, or PCL is what he had. When he was hurt last year, he played so much better than he did in the beginning of the season. I think time watching Flacco, time watching Mike White, and just overall kind of resetting and things like that kind of helped him. When he came back, he had a few good games. I know on Twitter, I've seen a lot of people saying we need Tampa Bay Zach, so to speak. In other words, the game that we played against Tampa Bay, Zach played really well. Numbers-wise, he had 234 passing yards and a touchdown. He made some great plays in the pocket in that game, and I think anyone that watched the game was blown away. At that time, the only wide receiver that was healthy, I believe, was Braxton Berrios. I cannot remember. Crowder was out. Elijah Moore was out. Corey Davis was out for weeks prior to that. It was just him and Keelan Cole. It was Keelan Cole and Braxton Berrios, basically. And Berrios had a really good game. I remember he had, can't remember, Kenny Yeboah. He had a really hell of a wonderful dime piece throw, Kenny Yeboah, in that game that made my mouth, my jaw dropped. It was on the floor. I just didn't see that in him. I thought he was all athleticism and, fantastic throws on the run, not in the pocket throws like that. So I definitely get why the Jets fans have been saying that. I would prefer Philadelphia Zach. In other words, when we played the Eagles last year, he had 2 touchdowns. He had an interception, but he also had a rushing touchdown with those 2 touchdowns and 226 yards passing. He looked really good in that game, and the big key for me was he came out hot. We had 3 touchdowns in the first half. And if you remember watching Jets games last year, we couldn't start fast ever. That was like the first game that we started fast and kept going too. And we need to see that. And then the first touchdown he threw was to Elijah Moore. There's a key there that I'm looking at. I want that aggressiveness, that swagger that he had in that game to be brought on this Sunday. He brings that, and I'm feeling pretty good about our chances. Quite good if we see Philadelphia Zach. I know in the second half he kind of cooled off, but that's because the Eagles ran the ball for 11 and a half damn minutes in that drive, and they lost all steam. So I want to see that, Zach. We'll see what happens this week, but I'm feeling pretty good about having our guy back. Elijah Moore is the next guy I want to highlight. I'm expecting big things. I know I said last week that I loved Elijah's chances coming into the game, mostly because I knew he was going to be squared up against Eli Apple some and things like that. He didn't have the game that I was expecting. I'm going to blame Flacco for a lot of that. I think the other part of it is I think Elijah did get a little frustrated, not getting the ball early. Wide receivers get like that. So I'm not really entirely surprised there. I'm doubling down on Elijah this week. I think this is going to be the week. I already mentioned earlier the number 1 corner is out. And if you look at the stats, the number 1 wide receiver has gone off every game the Steelers has played. So basically, any team that they've played, their number 1 wide receiver has gone off. Example, Jamar Chase had 129 yards and 10 catches. Amari Cooper had 101 yards and 7 catches and a touchdown. Aguilar, he might be the number 1. If he's not the number 1, he's definitely their big play threat. So, you can grade that on a curve on my part there. But he had 110 yards and a touchdown. I think Elijah Moore may not be Jamar Chase. He might not be Amari Cooper, but he's the next step down. He's a good wide receiver. And their number 1 corner is not there. I think that's a really good opportunity for our guy. He can be a number 2 corner. He could be the number 3 corner for sure. I think we're going to be set for a good game there. Just my opinion. And I think Moore and Zach have kind of worked on their connection. If you recall, he worked out with Zach, privately. I think he went and visited him in Miami, and then they even went to Arizona, and then they did some some catching out there with some other wide receivers too. And then they had they had a little trip when they went to, I don't remember exactly what state it was, but they went somewhere out west and they hung out and all that. So they were working on their relationship all together, and just building their connection. I think that we're going to see a lot of Wilson some more. Really feel it. I think it starts on Sunday. So look out for 8-ball. He's going to be coming with something. I mean, my prediction is that we'll get 80 yards and maybe a touchdown. Is that too strong? I think that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. It depends on how much we actually pass the ball in this game. But if we're passing, Zach throws the ball 30 times, yeah, 80 yards and a TD, hell yeah. That's what I'm seeing. Breece Hall, next player. Last week we threw the ball to him a lot, 11 damn times. But he did have a solid game, almost totaling 100 yards from scrimmage. As I mentioned before, this team's going to run the ball a lot. LaFleur mentioned it several times. He mentioned that he was frustrated with the fact that he said the fact that we are leading the NFL in pass attempts is disgusting, especially with a 40-year-old quarterback. All right, he's not 40, but y'all get the point. That's because we were behind in so many games. Now that we're not going to necessarily be in that situation, or we shouldn't be, I think this team is going to run the ball a hell of a lot. They're going against another ground and pound team. I just don't see the Steelers getting up by 2 touchdowns, and then we'll be forced to pass in that situation. So if that's the case, we're going to run with Breece and we're going to run with Michael Carter. I'm going to give the edge to Breece because Breece has seemingly been getting hotter and hotter as he's been running the ball. If we give him at least 10 carries, I'd like to see him get maybe 12 to 15. I think he has a big game. I'm going to say maybe 75 yards rushing, maybe a TD. We'll see. But that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I think he's going to have a good game. So from our safeties, not that I'm expecting a big game for them. I'm just highlighting them as in with Jordan Whitehead and LaMarcus Joyner. Even though Tomlin came out extremely complimentary, if you watched his press conference on Wednesday, it was hilarious. He said that they have 2 really good safeties over there. So they're really great tacklers. I think he was trolling, but coaches do that. But whatever. So anyway, I don't feel the same way as he does about our safeties. A lot of the miscommunications and the touchdowns that I mentioned earlier happen against those 2. If it's not Joyner, it's Whitehead, but mostly Joyner, for sure. So I'm hoping and praying for a bounce back game here from both of them. And I think I even mentioned in the post game of the Bengals, though, Whitehead wasn't as bad. He just had one terrible play, but all the other plays, he actually was looking better. So I'm hopeful with him. I am, and plus I'm a fan of the guy. I mean, he's cousin to Darrelle Revis. I want to give him credit. I want to grade him off a curve, all that stuff. But that said, if we don't have a comeback game from them, I would like us to sprinkle in some Will Parks, Philly Will Parks. And kind of scared to say it, but maybe Ashton Davis. Don't yell at me. Ashton Davis had that game-saving interception against the Browns. He helped us win that game. It was the one play. Some people might say that, that Brissett threw it right to him. Right place, right time. That's a big part of being good in any sport. Okay. I would like to give him a few more snaps. I'm not saying give him 20. No, maybe 5. 5 for both. I really like Will Parks a lot too. He's a great tackler. He's a thumper. I like my players to be thumpers. That's just my thing. When you get that from a safety, it gets the defense hype, and you need that. You need that. Ashton Davis is more of a ball hawk, interception guy, not just because of that game. He did it last year too. He can just get exposed in the run game, in the tackling game. So pick your poison there, but I just want more snaps for those 2. We'll see what happens. Lastly, as far as Jets players to highlight, Quan Alexander. Since Quincy's not going, that means Quan is going to be starting alongside CJ Mosley. Y'all know I love Quan. I've talked about him probably every video or close to it. He's a thumper. and he's more than solid in coverage. Not to mention, he gets the defense hype and brings the positive energy that our boys need. I was just saying that about Philly Will Parks. Quan is that to the 10th degree. It's a whole nother vibe when Quan is out there. Quan is a talker on defense. He brings that. I want to see it. And I feel like he's due for a big play. He had one, I think, in week 1, but we just weren't able to recover the fumble. See him tackling somebody so hard it causes a fumble and we recover it. Not saying we're going to get a touchdown on it, but I can feel that. Or just like a huge hit on 3rd down that just ignites the defense and gets us hype. We need a smart player like him. We need a good player in coverage like that. And just that energy, that spark plug. We need that guy. And I'm excited to see him get more snaps on Sunday. I'll be watching him. All right. And to wrap up with the Steelers, players that we cannot let wreak havoc on us this week. Number 1 is Alex Highsmith. I mentioned him earlier. He leads his team in sacks and the NFL as well. 4.5 sacks in just 3 weeks. That's something to keep our eyes on because that's a lot to just within the first 3 weeks there. Considering the state of our offensive line, I'm not going to keep talking about it, but McDermott, that's all I'm going to say. You have to worry about this guy coming into this game. If we can block him, we can certainly win it. Even if we don't block him, we just need to minimize his damage. I'm worried about this guy a lot. But I do think that we can scheme for him. We were able to scheme for Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is better than Highsmith. That said, we cannot take Highsmith lightly. He's damn good. Minkah Fitzpatrick. Dude's just a guy who makes plays for the Steelers. He can cause turnovers and make quarterbacks look foolish if they let him. He's coming into the game with 2 interceptions, 24 tackles, and a block kick that ended up helping the Steelers win that game. If he doesn't block that, the Bengals make that kick, and then the Bengals are, what would that make them, 2-1? So you get the point. It's a whole nother battle with him out there. He was coming into the game, or not he was coming into the game. We already know he's playing, but he was battling a concussion last week. Hoping he was going to take a break. He didn't take a break. So I need Zach to know where he is on the field at all times. I just don't want him to, wreck the game for us. We don't need him causing 2 turnovers against us because that'll be hard for us to overcome. We're just not that type of offense right now. And even when offenses are that great, you don't want to start off with your one hand tied behind your back, so to speak. Last player that I'm a little worried about, but not considerably, is Deontay Johnson. He's the Steelers' most decorated wide receiver at this point in time. I want to say most talented, but like I said, George Pickens is talented too. We just haven't seen it on the field on a weekly basis because he's just not getting a bunch of targets. Some people say that's Trubisky's fault. Some say it's the offensive coordinator's fault. I don't care. I'm a Jets fan. My whole point is I don't want Deontay Johnson having a good game against us. That's it. He struggles with drops from time to time, which is something that's pretty strange. He's got 21 catches on 196 yards, and each game that he leads the Steelers in targets. So he's someone we'll have to key in on. If he matches up with DJ Reed and the Sauce, I'm not worried at all. Not even a little bit. None. I'm just worried about him versus our safeties. That's it. That said, moving on to the prediction of the game. I know you guys are going to say, well, of course she's going to say the Jets are going to win because she said it every week so far. You're right, I am. I have belief in this team. Our Jets are getting a shot in the arm this Sunday by getting our franchise quarterback. That can't be dismissed. Don't let Salah fool you. This is a much needed spark. Our backs are against the wall right now, down 1-2. Last week's game against the Bengals was a damn letdown. Disappointing. Especially after coming off that high of that win against the Browns the week before, and just we came out flat. There was just a lot of nasty in the game. There were some positives in there. I went over them last week. My whole point is we need to start back from ground zero now. Start building ourselves back up. And getting Zach back at this time is just, I think it's a really good opportunity for us. And I think we're going to come out fighting. They're down a corner, and there are other corners battling a groin injury. We should score some damn points. I already mentioned what the number one wide receivers on other teams have done against the Steelers. There is also no TJ Watt. I'm going to say it again. There is also no TJ Watt. They are they're the reverse of undefeated, because I can't think of how to say it right now. Against teams when TJ Watt is not in there. They can't win without him. We better not be the team that breaks that streak, and we won't be. We're going to score some damn points. I got the Jets going 27-21. I almost want to take that 21 down a little bit, but because of the safety play, I'm going to keep it at 27-21, but Jets take it in Acrisure Field, or whatever the hell it's called now. All right, that said, I'm just wrapping this up. Some Jets bets, not Jets bets, some bets that I have going for Sunday. Got a few. I'm just gonna go with 3, even though I have a few other ones that I'm not gonna go over because I'm not confident in those, y'all, and I'm still an amateur bettor, so I don't want to give any advice to folks when I'm still, working my way through these. I'm taking the Jets to cover, and I even took the money line and a money line parlay that I did. I told you I wouldn't mess around with too many parlays, but it's fine. I can't help it. So the line has moved to 3.5 points, and both teams are desperate. Both teams are not world beaters yet. Both teams are dealing with injuries. I don't see this being a very high scoring game, even though I mentioned the 27-21, and I think we'll beat them by that. But even if it was flipped or whatever, I just don't see the Steelers. I don't see the Steelers overcoming that, and winning. So anyway, and I also think we're the more talented team. Doesn't win every Sunday, but I think that makes a difference here with their best player being. Next game, I don't even like saying it, but it's true. Taking the Buccaneers minus the points. I know Tom Brady didn't perform well, or doesn't perform well, rather, on late night primetime games, or late night primetime games. But they're trending to be the healthiest they've been this season. They're getting Mike Evans back. I heard, I can't think of the wide receiver's name. There are 2 wide receivers coming back. And I mean, that's key. I think Fournette is coming back. They're getting healthier at a good time. And they have the better defense. And the line is at 1 point. I just feel pretty good about the Bucs winning that game. But that's what I've got there. And I'm going to give you 2 here. I'm taking the Texans and the points and the Jaguars and the points, essentially. The Texans line is at 5.5. The Jaguars at 6.5. I just believe that Sunday's going to be a huge game for Doug Peterson. The way that Philadelphia kind of treated him on the way out, I think is going to make a big difference. The Jaguars are hot right now, even though I really wasn't expecting that going into the season. Their quarterback looks really good. Trevor Lawrence. It looks like Peterson was just able to just show him what he was missing and just give him the confidence to play better. And they got some weapons over there. Their running back, Robinson, is really good. He was good last year too until he got hurt. So I'm not entirely surprised that the Jaguars have been doing this well, but I just feel like even against Philadelphia, Philadelphia's defense has been kind of spotty. Darius Slay is injured going into this game. He's not ruled out yet, but if you don't have Slay out there, big play Slay, it's going to make a difference. That's all. Now, if this was like, who are you choosing, Jaguars or Philly? I mean, like straight up money line, I'm probably still taking Philly. But when it comes to the spread, yes, I will take those 6.5 points. Thank you. And the Texans are really easy. I'm not even going to go super hardcore into it. The Texans just cover a lot. I haven't seen them not cover in a while here. I think they have covered every game this season, and even last year they were covering some games. So I feel pretty good about those 2 bets here. and we'll see kind of what happens. That said, that's really all I've got for you guys this week. I think it's going to be a very interesting Sunday, and I'm hoping for some Jets W's in the future going forward as well. So thanks for watching, as always. Thank you for watching Tsunami Speaks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. I do have a Knicks video coming. Probably going to be done tomorrow, but I'm not sure. We'll see how Saturday goes. But y'all have a great day.